Hello and welcome back, all you spectators. Boy, do we have some huge news to share with all of you. This week, Jesus and I are checking off one of our 2022 Comic Creator Interview Grail goals. That's right, we've got award-winning comic artist Rafael Albuquerque on the show, and we could not be more excited about it. So stop sniffing eggs in the basement with Mr. Jones and keep an eye out for vampire blood. This is episode 28.
This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Do you think we need one more?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you think we need one more?
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
All right, we'll get one more.
Spectators, a comic book podcast with Jake and Jesus.
Welcome back, spectators, and thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Spectales, a comic book podcast where we ask collectors and creators the endlessly interesting question, what's your grail tale? Each week, we explore news stories about comic book grails we love, the epic journeys behind how they were obtained, or how they inspired new creativity. We also dive into some comic book speculation and how, as collectors, we can help the hobby pay for itself. I am Jake, your faithful host, alongside my exceedingly charming co-host, Jesus.
Wow. Wow, that has never been said of me. So I'm blushing right now, man. It's crazy. Thank you.
I'm going to need a more epic word than blushing, though, to describe the magnitude of this moment for us.
I think epic is really the word, man. I think I'm so excited, man. I'm giddy. I don't know if you guys can tell in my voice since I have one of the most monotone voices in the world, but I'm very excited.
I'm getting a sense of giddy. It's in there somewhere. Why are you so giddy? I'm going to go ahead and tell everybody listening why you are so giddy. I won't waste any more time. And also, I promise I will do my very best to contain all of my absolute fandom from exploding all over this episode, but I'll try. Today, we have a absolutely incredible guest. He is an Eisner and Harvey Award-winning comic book artist and creator. His work span almost every publisher and include titles such as American Vampire, Batman, image titles such as Huck and Prodigy, and even a new collaboration with Scott Snyder that is going to be released later this year called Duck and Cover. If you haven't guessed it already, which I would be damn surprised if you haven't, his name is Rafael Albuquerque. Rafael, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Jesus. It's a pleasure to be here. And, hello, everyone who's listening to that podcast. It's an honor. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, seriously, the honor is absolutely ours. So having been reading your work, reading the books you've been working on for more than a decade now, for me, this was one of those interviews where I was really, really pushing it. Not that Jesus cared. He and I both really wanted to have you on. So
thanks, man. Thanks a lot.
That said, I promised I would try to contain my fandom, so I will. I'll shower you with compliments, but I'll try to do it, sparingly throughout. Let's kind of really dive into kind of the meat of things. I mean, you are always working, right? But Duck and Cover is something new that's coming out this year that I'm aware of. Is this the first collaboration with Scott Snyder since American Vampire?
We have done some Batman things.
That's true.
Like in between, but yeah, when we were talking about creator-owned stuff, this is our second thing. Let's just say.
But how far can you say you're into it already?
I have to say that I didn't start it yet. But it's a really nice speech, and I have done some concept art and for him to present to Comixology, and it is really cool. I mean, it evokes things things from my childhood, such as Goonies, but he also kind of merged with that horror quality that he's known for. So I think what you can expect from this book is let's just say like a teen kind of book.
Yeah.
With that Amblin kind of feel.
Oh yeah. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
But a horror thing.
So
it's hard to describe, but something like that.
No, and that's all right. I didn't necessarily. I was just trying to get a little bit of a glimpse into behind the curtain as far as where you were at with it.
Something like that.
I know that when I saw you guys were collaborating on a creator-owned piece again, I was immediately like, "Take my money. I don't care what it is." Like, if your guys' names on it.
So, I appreciate that. I really love to collaborate with Scott. He's more than just a collaborator. He's a really good friend I made in the industry, and he's like my brother for sure. It's we don't really just talk about the things we're going to collaborate or the stories or work. We really talk about anything. So it's much nicer for me as a creator to collaborate with such a talented friend.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. It's much easier to do a project this way. So, I mean, when Scott came up with the idea, it was just say yes in a heartbeat. It wasn't hard to say yes to that.
I can't imagine. Very cool. Well, I might have got ahead of myself. Of course, I let my fandom go. We probably let's maybe backtrack. Do you go by Rafa? I see your name.
Rafa, sure, yeah.
Rafa. I wow, we're on those terms now. That's awesome. I'm gonna tell my friends.
Oh my god! No, you
didn't. Okay, so if you don't mind. I think we can. I mean, I'd love to continue this conversation, but I think I'm going to steer us kind of in towards our first segment, which we always start our shows off with talking about a recent pickup, something that we recently read or a collectible we recently bought. And I usually will let Jesus kick it off, and then we'll go around the horn, and I'll let you go, and then I'll talk about something I recently read as well. You ready? You good with that?
Let's try.
Cool. Yeah, let's give it a go. All right, Jesus, you're up.
All right, man. So this is gonna be something we've talked about. I picked up the run 2 through 10 a couple episodes back. I don't remember how far back it was. We need to go back and check. But it's and I haven't been able to find number 1 at a decent price, right? Because it keeps climbing. So I was looking for number one, and I finally broke down. And I don't really do Comixology. So I got it on Comixology so I could read it because I knew this was coming up and I wanted to be prepared for it. So I had picked up American Vampire numbers 2 through 10 at a local comic shop, but I could not find number 1. So I finally found it, or I finally read it on Comixology, and I read it. And, Jake has been talking about this for a long time. He said it's one of his favorite reads. And I'm a big vampire horror fan. I love werewolves, zombies, vampires, and I can't believe at this time when this came out, I wasn't actively reading and I wasn't actively collecting. I had just stopped. It was like 2012, 2013, I think, when I stopped. So I didn't know about it. So when Jake kept talking about it, I was like, what is this? What is this? What is this? Whenever Jake talks about it, the expectations are like here, right? Like they're super high. And then when you finally read it, it's like, wait a second. Jake was underselling it a little bit, right? Like Jake undersold the whole thing. And so I'm really excited to read 2 through 10. And of course, Rafa is a co-creator of the American Vampire with Scott Snyder. So it was just really awesome. That's my recent pickup for this week.
Thank you very much. That's very nice.
Thank you.
These are very nice ones.
Thank you for doing that.
I want to say, I mean, I could probably talk American Vampire with you for a very long time, but we don't have that kind of time. I would like to maybe dive a little bit deeper, because one of the reasons why I love the artwork and the storyline for it is how it really covers so many decades and so much time. And one of the things that one of the geek questions I really want to ask you, Rafa, is how did you manage to portray these characters, or how much effort, I guess, I'm sure it was a lot, but what went into portraying these characters? But I mean, really, the storyline didn't just transcend a decade. It almost transcended genres, right? We had Western, and then we had epic war. And then, we had the 1950s and the motorcycles and the cool, the cool leather jackets. And
That's true.
And just all of the aesthetic. I mean, not necessarily just portraying what the words were saying, but portraying the world at that time, and then through this lens. I guess, can you just briefly talk about what that process was like when you were really originally diving into this artwork and understanding you were just, going from the old cowboy westerns to, World War II?
Yeah, I think this was my particular game, my particular play, that was trying to play with aesthetics in every single arc of American Vampires. So I tried to face them as a mix of something established with something new. And my particular process was going after artists from the time and trying to look for reference, just like a lunatic. And Scott is one of these guys who really needs reference to write as well. He's kind of a Tarantino style dude.
Yeah.
Tarantino, when he kind of builds like a playlist so he can write. Scott is a bit like that when it comes to the references. So he kind of sent me this huge PDF with a lot of reference, and that helped me a lot. And since the beginning, so what I try to do is, and although I'm a comic artist, my favorite media is movies, right?
Awesome.
So this is the thing I watch the most and I get referenced the most. So in every single arc, I try to find, just visual references, movies from that time or that refer to that time. And not just that, but also movies or literature that kind of have the feel that we need. And I'm going to give you an example. When I was co-writing a story called Long Road to Hell, it's special that we did back in the day. And Mark Doyle, our editor at the time, he recommended me two books, and no, one book and one movie. Forgot the name in English, but it's Truman Capote, famous
In Cold Blood.
In Cold Blood, exactly. And this book, and in Portuguese it's called A Sangue Frio, but it's the same. And to watch the movie, what's the name? Badlands or something like that.
Badlands?
But maybe Badlands. I don't know. It's a movie. It's an old movie with Martin Sheen when he was young. Maybe it's not Badlands.
Yeah, Badlands. Martin Sheen, 1973.
Badlands, right?
Yeah.
So, these were the things. So I also watched it for the first time, Easy Rider, which I never did at the time. So I tried to, feed myself with references and try to figure out that time. That was late 50s. And if you read the story, you won't find that. But you probably find bits of these references in the story. You have this crazy couple, just like in the Badlands, that they are not bad people, but they go all the way until they're ruined in a way.
Yeah,
right? Just like in Badlands, or so in every single of these references, I get a little bit to build all that atmosphere or all that mood, or to portray those characters and or set the time period.
Yeah, the world
So
building was
this is
just
pretty much how I do that.
yeah.
I
I
try
think that
to
that's cool. I love that process.
get as much as reference as I can.
Well, it was absolutely engrossing when I read it the first time, and I've got all the trades, and I need to truly get some respectable. I have some of the original, obviously floppies, but honestly, my floppies have been read so many times and stuff. So I need to get some respectable, some nice clean versions of them. But that said, I've read the story over and over. I've recommended it to I don't know how many people. And that's a book that I know I've given away copies of it just to get people to read it. Like, seriously, take the book, read it now. So,
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
So,
you're welcome.
I have a question on this one. Or a comment and a question. So one, I am finally the one on the opposite end of this, because I'm usually the one that reads the stuff first, and I send it to people or something, and I'm excited for them because they get to read it at their pace, but it's already all out, and they can they don't have to wait week to week. So now I get to finally do that, where the whole series is out, so I'm probably gonna read the whole thing and binge it. So thank you to me, thank you guys, I appreciate that. Thank you for making it. But then the second question about American Vampire is, and I hear this a lot, and I don't know, right? I don't know anything about it. As far as, has there been any talk or anything about adapting it to, whether it's animation or whether it's a live action or a series? Because it seems like it's set up for a series more than a compact movie. But is there any talk about that you can share with us?
Not really. I mean, years ago, I know there was an interest by a channel, but I don't think it went through. I don't think they have the rights anymore. And unfortunately, no. I'd love to see that. That would be really cool to see.
So they had optioned it, but the option expired, basically.
Yeah, but back in the day, I mean, maybe 8 years ago or something. I know there was a channel. I don't even remember the channel, but I know they were interested and they got the rights to adapt. But this industry is like, they get the option to do the thing, but if they don't do in certain amount of time, they lose the rights, or they have the chance to renew. As far as I know, and I know that DC and Warner were taking care of it, I was barely noticed about it. So as far as I know, they didn't renew the option because the channel was kind of closing, all those things. So it was probably just bad timing or something like that.
Well, I can tell you one thing. In my opinion, Skinner Sweet deserves to be on the screen somewhere. That character is so good.
I'd love to see that.
In my head, I always try to picture who could play him or who could capture that. I mean, at first he starts out as such a villain, and then he turns into the hero, like the guy that you are literally rooting for.
Yeah,
it's just a phenomenal emotional roller coaster of a character. We
definitely need a really good actor that can, play a villain that is so charismatic that you kind of attach to him. Yeah. I understand. Yeah. It's not easy to cast a guy like that.
No, absolutely not. And in that same vein, it's not easy to convey that character in a book form either, right? Like, to take a character that is terrible, right? I mean, he's not the type of person you should root for, but honestly, when you read the book, he's too charismatic not to like. For some reason.
Yeah, exactly. That was the point since the beginning. I mean, Scott was like, you need a character that's going to do horrible shit.
Yeah.
But and for me as an artist, it was like, okay, fun. But it was like, but he's the main character, and people have to like him. So these are one thing that I really like to play when I'm drawing is the acting of the characters. Just like director, I like to play with the acting.
Yeah.
And I think we did it well when, the way we built the Skinner suite, and also Pearl, but Skinner, because he's a bad guy, but he's also, and Scott was very skilled by creating a background that kind of gave him reasons to be like that. And so the audience would not forgive him, but understand him,
There are some sympathies for the character,
And I have to say that I think I did my very best into trying to kind of translate that to images by making him very emotional. He's just like every single one of us. We are not just good or bad. We're
a mix.
We have our sides. Mm-hmm. So he's very relatable.
Yeah.
This is why I think
lots of depth.
We succeeded in that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so Jesus, thank you for bringing up American Vampire. I was going to do it if you didn't. So Rafa, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to transition over to you. Is there something you've recently read that you kind of want to just shout out, whether it's something you've worked on or something that you just read that you like that somebody else wrote or worked on?
Just as I was telling you in the backstage, I'm not really a comic reader, and not because I don't like, but since I started working on it, it feels weird for me because I cannot really connect with that much. I start reading something and then I caught myself just taking a look at art and saying that this is bad or this is great, and kind of doing the thing. So it's very hard for me to be a reader ever since. I can say that probably the last comic I really enjoyed was Asterios Polyp from David Mazzucchelli.
Okay.
And I think David Mazzucchelli is the guy who drew Man Without Fear, if I recall. Batman Year One, his super master blaster of comic art.
Yeah.
And Asterios Polyp is a phenomenal comic book graphic novel that he wrote and drew. And it's a really nice experiment, storytelling experiment. So as an artist, it's really cool to see how far you can go with graphic art, basically. So for me, that's what struck into me. I really love it, and I really recommend, because the story itself is really great. But if you're an artist or a designer, this is a masterpiece. You should check it out.
And what year was that published?
A Pantheon or something like that.
I am going to have to look that up. I am not familiar with it, but that sounds incredible. So thank you very much for the recommendation. All right, cool. I'm going to go ahead then move over to my recent pickup or recent read. Like Jesus, I wanted to continue to beef up my knowledge of your body of work, which I've read a ton of, the Batman, All-Star Batman and stuff that you've worked on, right. Which I certainly appreciate, but I wanted to experience something else that you had done. So I read Prodigy, which released in 2018, end of 2018. And you worked on it with Mark Millar. I got to say the main protagonist, Edison Crane, he's an incredibly interesting and really surprising character. For those listening, the basic plot line, and I apologize if I'm a terrible pitch for it, but it's basically the most interesting, smartest, athletic, incredible human being to ever exist is this man, Edison Crane, who basically was performing heart surgery at the age of 9. And by the time you catch up with him as an adult, he is, launching himself over a giant canyon on fire in a motorcycle, just to please children. And he's playing 20 different chess games all at the same time. He's solving nuclear war. Like, he's basically doing all of these things. And that's just one day in his life. It's absolutely crazy. And then, the storyline transitions into him being called upon by the CIA to essentially take on a, Avengers level threat, basically, is what it amounts to.
Exactly.
But story-wise, this to me was surprising. I got to say, from an artwork standpoint, it wasn't as dark as I feel like I've seen you go. And I know that not everything you do is exclusively dark stuff, of course, but this one to me was almost, it felt like out of your comfort zone in a good way. Like, it seemed like it took you in a unique direction, almost into slightly espionage, in a way, or action adventure. And it was a lot of fun. And so they only did 6, you guys worked on 6 issues, correct?
6 issues, yeah.
And where is this, I guess, story at now? Are we done with it? Is there a chance to pick it back up?
I'm not sure if I can say that. I'm not going to do that anymore, as far as I know.
Okay.
But I know there are plans to bring project back, probably with someone else and probably in a different way. I don't really know much about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. I really enjoyed the series. I'd love to see some more with that, especially that protagonist.
Yeah. I like trying different things with my art. I don't, I know that American Vampire is a horror book, and I know I'm very known by that. So people tend to label me as a horror artist, which I'm not really. I drew Blue Beetle. I drew Batman. I drew Superman. I drew, so I kind of want to be able to do anything as long as it's cool. And I think getting back to what you mentioned, I have never done a kind of 007 story or anything like that. That it was just fun and just compromised, and and the Millar is really good at it. So maybe that's why it feels different, out of the box. But that's probably just my interpretation of what he was writing. I was not trying anything new or anything like that. I was just trying to be honest to the character and to the story. And yeah, I think it's nice. It was well done.
Yeah, I genuinely enjoyed it. I think maybe I was more referring to, and again, like, I know you don't necessarily just do horror, and by dark, I guess I just meant, a lot of the Batman and the American Vampire, it seemed, I get it, like, darker visually, like colors and things like that. And this one was very bright.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so
but remember that I did Huck.
Huck was the other outlier I was going to say.
And that's very uplifting and very, feel good comic.
Yeah, that
I kind of flirted with that,
which was fun. Actually, flirt is a good way to put. Huck was another very enjoyable read as well, for me. And the thing was, it was also kind of like Prodigy, just struck me as fun and different. Which is always cool, right? Like, that's what I love about the independent covers, with Image and things like that, is I feel like it's a really fun way to get away from the norm or the superhero, which there's always room for Batman, but in doses, right? Or at least for me.
That's true. I really enjoy do different things. I mean, again, nothing against horror or superheroes. I like it all. as an artist, as a storyteller, I want to be able to do everything, every single thing. So, I mean, if I have the chance to do a children's book, sure. You know, this is the kind of thing. I don't want to limit myself to a style or genre.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's great. And if as a reader, as somebody who is a consumer of the stuff you're doing, I appreciate that perspective, and it always makes me interested in what you're doing next. What we are doing next, however, just to continue this train, keep it rolling. Jesus and I always love this segment. We are going to go into our Grail Tale segment, and I know I talked to you about it briefly before the show, but we essentially are just going to kind of ask what book, what is your Grail and kind of the story behind it, and is there a singular, whether it's one singular book or you mentioned movies, you mentioned you really love movies. Is there something that you sort of hold above the rest and it influences you or influenced you in what you do?
It's a complicated answer, but probably the easiest way to go with it is, I mean, Dark Knight is a holy grail for everyone. Every single artist have this book as, this is how you do comics. And Frank Miller is definitely a true master and someone who inspired me definitely in how I do my work. This is a professor, right?
Yeah.
There are many others, of course, but I could definitely. I mean, if you look at Katsuhiro Tomo, Akira, and you see that, although it's not like a super direct reference, it's a comic that really struck me really well, really bad.
Yep. That was Andre's book, by the way. Akira was Andre Lima Araujo. When we spoke to him, Akira was the book that he said really set him off. As a young adult, he read that and he immediately knew he needed to be involved.
There's one of my first comics, and it's still a really good reference. It's Asterix. You know that this comic
Asterix?
From France?
Yeah. I'm not familiar with it.
It's very famous. They have like a theme park in France. They are very famous.
Oh, cool.
So Asterix is like the goal. It's like a medieval, not medieval, but it's more like on the Romans empire time. So the goal kind of have the France. They were resisting to the empire, kind of trying to domain them, but it's a comedy. It's just fun, but they play with historical kind of thing. It's really really good. What else? Calvin and Hobbes. This is
that's
phenomenal.
Amazing. That's awesome.
These guys, a master, Bill Watterson. Who else? So I mean, there's a lot of things that influenced me from many. I mean, Norman Rockwell. He's not a comic artist. He's an illustrator. He's a painter, and this guy is one of my greatest influence. I wish I could be that good, but I tried to capture, that acting from him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's never come up on our show before, by the way. That's incredible.
These guys are a huge influence.
I love that. I mean, you're naming. I mean, some of the span of the people that you're naming, from Frank Miller to Norman Rockwell to as it should be, right? Your influences are many, but I think that's an incredible. The Dark Knight one, I love hearing that from you. And I know that it shouldn't come as a surprise, but I love hearing that from you because I'm also, in addition to American Vampire, obviously Batman. Your work on Batman is also some of my absolute favorite stuff that you've done. And I immediately always, for some reason, when I go back and reread stuff, I mean, I love Scott Snyder's stuff on Batman, of course, too. But
Yeah, he's awesome.
it always, when I have a shelf that's just Batman, and that shelf gets reread, over and over with trades and things. And Dark Knight, the Scott Snyder's New 52, and some of the All-Star Batman, because I read a lot of that all at the same time. And I also love Batman Earth One. And so anyway, it's just a rotation. But when you said Dark Knight, I immediately in my head, I was just like, well, of course that was an influence. Like I hadn't put it together before. I always read them back to back, and I never really put together that connection. Right. So, but you did it your own way, which I think is also.
But for me, it's more like it's not just Dark Knight, which is amazing. Yeah, I'm wrong. I mean, it's a Scorsese move, but it's Frank Miller himself. I mean, I just got this beautiful artist edition of Sin City.
Oh yeah,
it's so nice to see because you can really understand. I mean, for me, Frank Miller is one. It's an artist like Picasso, for example. I mean, he's a guy who started very classic and very traditional, and he was kind of disconstructing his artwork until something else that no one did. There's no precedent to that. Mm-hmm. So you may not like, that doesn't matter. Just like Picasso. I mean, you don't have to like it, but you have to. But once you understand the path, it's
undeniable.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
So I think he's such a big influence, not because I try to copy him or anything like that, although sometimes I do. It's much more because he kind of created a new meaning for what is being a comic artist for me. And I'm not, I don't know if I have the talent to be a guy like him. Probably not. But if I want, if there's a goal for me as an artist, is to be someone like him. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. To kind of create this kind of path and become a true artist of it.
Incredible. I think that's evident in your work, and in my humble opinion, your artwork has impacted me in such a way. I truly do think that you have the skill and the talent to be on the level of Frank Miller. But that's my emotions talking, of course. But I can relate.
That's very kind.
I can relate stuff that you've worked on that I've read at it kind of like a song. If you remember a song from when you were a kid, that there's like that built-in nostalgia where you hear the song and you instantly can smell what you were smelling at the time, and you can feel it. Your books do that for me.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate that.
So that's, of course, I'm putting you on that pedestal, and you can take yourself off if you want, but I'm leaving you up there.
You're very kind.
I think that's interesting. I also think that creators, they hold themselves to such a high standard, man. And we're consumers of it, right? We're consumers, and we love comic books, and that's what we do. And but we can see that, at least me with your work. I can see that too. Like I was going to tell you, I see, some of that changes in the evolution that you've been going through, and that you're pushing, yourself to do. And I think it's really cool to finally get an understanding from you as to like, where does that come from? Like I was going to ask, I have it written down, like, where's the motivation to, continue to raise your bar, and you just answered it perfectly with Frank Miller and kind of how he deconstructed, and that was your influence. So now I know, so thank you for answering that before I even got a chance to ask it. It was pretty cool, man.
All right. I thank you so much for sharing that information and that just, those influences. I would love to, move into our final segment where we kind of talk about speculation. As you know, I know you're not, as you said, you read, but you're not a reader, and you're not necessarily a collector. But as collectors, Jesus and I and a lot of our listeners, we're spending tons and tons of money every week just going for our weekly poll lists and things like that. So something else that we like to do is talk about speculation, because sometimes the hobby can sort of pay for itself in a way. So something that we like to do is always talk about maybe those hidden gem books that people might want to either look for, or maybe they already have in their box.
I'll do my best.
Yeah, it's all right. Hey, it's just a fun game we play. So no pressure. Also, sometimes it's really fun because, if you have some secret information about something that's been optioned that maybe you can, don't say no yet. Don't say no yet. Like,
oh man, that's so funny.
Jesus, I'm gonna let you lead the charge on this one too.
All right, man. So I picked something, very, I guess, prescient to our conversation today with our very special guest. You guys know, or at least the spectators know, that I like Ghost Rider. And there's several different versions of out there, and there's a special version of the Cosmic Ghost Rider. And so this book right now is not by any stretch, I would say, an affordable book already. It's already skyrocketed. But I also think that, with what's going on in the MCU, with Disney Plus shows, I specifically think of What If too, maybe. I think Cosmic Ghost Rider is a cool character. He's a fun character. But there's a very special 1 in 25 edition of Thanos number 13, which is the first appearance of the Cosmic Ghost Rider, done by Mr. Rafael Albuquerque. And it's just such a cool cover. Thanos is inevitable. We know what he is in the MCU. And it's just such a cool cover, man. It's so menacing. He has the Infinity Gauntlet on there.
Marvel never sent me this one. I want to make this protest here. They never sent me comps or anything.
Oh, really? Oh, man.
Announcing them.
Oh, we got to call.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a weird call
out. To be fair, they sent me a pack, but I don't know who did that, but it was someone else's covers and no mine.
Not yours.
So, anyway, it's probably just a mistake.
Oh, man.
We'll get that.
No hard feelings, Marvel, but that's true.
Somebody needs to make this right.
Yeah, we'll try to get it fixed, and then you can compost one to us, and then the world will be right. No, but it's just
Feige.
Talk to Feige. I'll send him a text.
It's just such a cool cover, man. Like, I don't know if you've seen it, Jake.
I was gonna say, are you showing him his own cover, Jesus? Because I know he's seen it.
I'm showing it to you, man.
No, I've got it up on my phone. I have seen this cover before.
Very well.
It's such an awesome
the
cover,
Infinity Gauntlet is amazing, and it's one of those things that it's like every time Thanos is on a cover, he almost always has to be wearing it, right? Like that's got to be a Thanos rule or something.
Yeah, that run is also a really good run. I think it's a Donny Cates run. I like Donny Cates. We've talked about him in the past. He
wrote a few issues,
Yeah, I have a couple of the A covers. I've been looking for this. And it's so funny, man. Like I tell Jake too, and I was going to ask you too, might as well right now. It's a good opportunity. I've always said, the Albuquerque cover, right? Like that's what it is, right? Like to me as a collector, like, have you seen the Albuquerque cover? Or dude, Albuquerque did one, right? And so talking to you is just blowing my mind, number one. But two, like, does that, like, do you have any, like, peripheral about collectors collecting your specific covers and things of that nature? Like, do you see that happening? Do you think, do you go on eBay every once in a while and check how much because this cover right now is going for over $500. Because it's a 1 in 25 incentive. You that's what I'm saying. That reaction that you had, like, did you know that? Is that something that's on your peripheral? Because some of these covers are so cool and so coveted for a collector like myself that we're willing to pay that much for that cover.
Now I wish Marvel had sent me. To be honest, no. I don't really follow this collector's market. It's not that I don't have an interest. It's more like it's not something natural for me is Brazilian. I mean, in Brazil, it's different. I mean, they don't have like floppies. It's more like collections and stuff like that. So it's not. We don't have like multiple covers or incentive covers or anything like that. Of course, I know it is this, but it's not something that is part of my formation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, when they ask me to do like a variant or something like that, I know this is aimed for collectors.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really follow that, or I don't really know how rare or not it's going to be, or it's not even something that really interests me, to be honest. Right?
Do you change the way you come at a cover if they tell you it's an A B cover or if it's a variant
really.
cover?
No, not really. No. I just try to make. The only thing I do is that I've been doing some DC covers that I know that are variants because they don't have the logo on it. It's like different.
The Virgin variant.
Yeah, just it's written on the top, but it doesn't have like the logo area basically. So this is a thing that actually changes my composition. Anything else for me is just a cover. I mean, I try to get the best images I can think until the deadline. That's it. So it's not like, of course, sometimes the publisher says, well, I need a Wolverine, I need a Batman, I need this thing on the cover. Of course, I'll aim for that. But most of the time it's just, especially when it's a variant, that you have like a bit more freedom. They just give you a pitch of the story and tell you, well, do whatever you want.
Hey, I think
cool.
that sounds fun too.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. So Rafa, what do you, is there anything that you would speculate on, whether it's your own work or something that, you know about, or any like, I don't know, toss out the first thing at the top of your mind. Maybe a book that is undervalued or something like that, maybe one that you've worked on.
Sorry, man. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no. That's fine. Hey, I would apologize for putting you in this position, but I got to admit I'm having fun doing it. So
what about a duck and cover, man? That's something that might be, I mean, obviously it's not coming out to December, but I'm already interested in it just because of how you described it, the Amblin, I mean, that's Goonies is right up my alley. Like that's the stuff that I grew up with that I love. So that stuff right there, I'm saying, at least for me, is I'm gonna be specking on that. So there you go.
Well, and if you don't mind, Rafael, I actually brought up because I wanted to talk about Duck and Cover before we got off, and I brought up on Best Jacket Press, which is Scott's publishing company. He's got a real brief synopsis of the series, and I can see that there's some artwork that you worked on, some concept art. It looks like, which by the way is it's available on bestjacketpress.com. You can pre-order.
Oh, that's really cool.
It's up there, and I was gonna read the real quick synopsis because I think it's worth the reading. It's when a sudden nuclear exchange obliterates the United States, only the children who hid under their school desks are spared. These teens now find themselves the lone survivors in a strange and wild new 50s America. Stranger still, some of them seem to be developing superhuman powers. So, I mean, I think that there's so much opportunity within this series. This was going to be my spec for me personally. So I'll throw that out there. I think that this is something that the Best Jacket Press that they're doing, which I find very interesting, is these books are being released digitally first, correct?
Yeah, it's Comixology, so I think they are digital first, and then probably is going to come out through Dark Horse.
Yeah, like We Have Demons and a few of his Clear, some of the first releases that have come out, those are about to be released, I believe, in April physically by Dark Horse, but the original copies came out digitally in November.
Yeah, it's going to follow the same pattern.
Same pattern. Well, I
Yeah.
I actually think that it's a very innovative way to go about doing it, which is one of the reasons I'm also specking on a lot of the Best Jacket Press books, including Duck and Cover, simply because of the unique way the release is happening with the first going digital, getting a lot of people to read, right? Like I have Comixology, a lot of readers do, and it's available. It's free. I mean, if you subscribe to Comixology, it's immediately available. And so that was very alluring. But now I need a physical copy of these books, right? I feel like, oh my God, I'm invested. Now I need the physical one.
Yeah, well, I don't really know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to have like a probably extra stuff, and well, just the fact that you can hold it and collect it, it's definitely different. But I'm not promising anything because this is with Scott, but I'm pretty sure that's going to have like a extra stuff and maybe designs or something like that. They always do that.
No, well, I'm looking forward to it regardless.
Yeah.
Rafa, I think so. In lieu of a speculation book, I'm going to ask, are you able to then tell us something that you're working on that we can expect maybe this year besides Duck and Cover?
I just finished the Harley Quinn story, short story.
Oh.
With Rafael. Yeah.
And do you know when that's due? When that's coming out?
Not really. I mean, it's for a special. I don't really know, honestly.
Okay. No, that's
I mean,
okay. That's
it's not like a secret or anything. I just don't know.
That's all right. We'll look for
I'm
that.
working in parallel with Scott's thing. I'm working with in a new project with Rick Remender. I cannot talk about it, but it's going to come out through Image.
Oh, perfect. All right. Well, I'd love what
I don't really know when though. I mean,
I just like getting the information. I love what Rick is doing on A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance.
Probably going to take a while, but the story is fantastic. Rick is amazing.
I don't know how he does it. Yeah, it's everything he works on seems to be brilliant. So
yeah,
cool. All right, that's good enough. All right, everybody, go and keep your eye out for those works. No title for the Rick Remender yet that you're allowed to talk about. You can't say the title.
There's a title, but I cannot mention it yet.
All right. I'll let you after we stop recording. Maybe you can like write it on a piece of paper and show me or something.
Let's see. But it's going to take a while because I'm doing in between. I mean, since I'm doing both projects together, it's kind of complicated, and probably it's going to take a while to be announced. Just when it's done.
So I guess that was a question I was going to ask too. And your process. So one, I guess 32-page issue. If you didn't have any multiple projects, how long does it take for you to do one issue?
One issue?
Mm-hmm.
I'm old now, so I would say 5 weeks or so.
5 weeks for one issue, and that's if you're not juggling, right? That's not if you have different projects in between.
No, if I'm just straight to this one issue, like 20 pages, 22 pages, I would say 5 issues is comfortable.
Okay.
I used to do like in 3 weeks. Now I'm
not as young as you used to be, huh? Is that?
Now you're relaxed. Now you know the game.
Grumpy old man. I cannot do that too fast.
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure catching up with you and talking about everything you're working on. I can't wait to see. And as far as the upcoming stuff you have going, take as much time as you think you need. We'll be here waiting patiently for the books. So
for sure.
Very much, Jake.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Rafa, before we close out the episode, I would love to tell people where they can. I mean, seriously, if they just Google your name, they're going to find you. But where are your handles? Where can people find you on the internets if they want to see more of you?
Instagram. I'm not like a heavy user. I'm there.
You're there.
but I just update eventually.
Gotcha. Well, again, you go and search Rafael Albuquerque. It spelled the way it sounds. All right. I think that's going to do it for us. This was seriously an absolute pleasure and kind of a dream come true for me.
Pleasure is mine.
Yeah, thank you so much. And everybody out there, go look for any of the number of books that we referred to on this episode. Honestly, if Rafael Albuquerque's name is on the cover, you will not be disappointed with what you find inside ever. So he is.
But that's not a guarantee.
I'm making that guarantee. If you want to argue with somebody about that, you can come and talk to me.
I mean, you might.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening in. You can find us here again next week. And if you haven't yet, please go back and listen to some of the previous episodes. We've got some really good ones. Last week, we had artist David Sanchez on, and before that, we had comic book collector Swaggelhouse Comics on. A lot of fun episodes. So go back if you haven't listened to those. But thank you so much again for showing up, and we'll see you all next week.